Hey y'all, I hope everybody's doing well today. So, if you couldn't tell already by the little clip I have at the beginning, we have got Venti here from Genshin Impact. His birthday is today, and so I thought it appropriate to draw the character. It did take me a while to get the pose down pat, and I did work on the sketch a little bit, so this is why I showed this time lapse in the beginning, because a lot of the sketching I kind of did a couple weeks ago actually, and then I refined some of it today. So we are going to be working on kind of a beginning start to the sketch in a sense, the more finalized version. And off we go. So Venti is one of the archons. Are really, he's more, how can I say it? He's a good representation of what one may look like. He doesn't really act like one of the animo gods or anything. He just acts pretty down to earth, and as long as he has his wand, he is happy. He loves playing his lyre, and apparently he is not a very good bard, although he claims to be really, really good. Um, so needless to say, Animo is his ability, and he's a bow user. I do have this character, so I was able to reference his outfit a lot for this, although I do make some changes here and there to make it more, I don't know, appropriate for the color setting and the style that I was going for. So I still worked on creating the somewhat semi-realistic anime style, and with this I ended up really, like, once again I focused very hard on the eyes. But I do like the way he turned out. I would like to draw him again, of course. As always, I'll always want to draw a lot of the characters again. Now, some of them, probably not so much, but a lot of them I do. So, needless to say, Genshin Impact is one of those games that has got the most wonderful graphics. I don't know, Hoyoverse is on a whole nother playing field and level with graphics in their games. I just absolutely love it. So, still the current or the last video's banner, and I'm just saving up my primos, my primogens. I ended up getting Sethos on the last pool, and so I'll just save them up until the next go around. So I kind of did something different with Venti here, and I feel like he looks a little bit more teen-like instead of the chibi child version of what he kind of is, which is not, he's like a mixture between chibi and adult, so, or chibi and teen, and it is, I don't know, it took me a while to grasp the concept of the way his face shape is. And of course we got his little braids. I'm not the best at braids, I need to really practice that. I just do the simple braid and also the flower, which honestly, after a while, I've realized that the flower is the, I'm gonna butcher it, it's the seal flower in Mondstadt, and actually it has got 5 petals, and I think on one of them I messed that up, but it's still, it looks alright. It's aesthetically pleasing, so we'll just go with that. So I had an issue, like I said, with the hand pose for this one, because he's at a different angle versus what he's normally at. And so it's kind of odd. It's like a front-facing angle, and yet it's not really front-facing. I get the hand at one angle and then the other hand at the other. And I debated on whether drawing him in the, like, an active game style or with his bow and doing his burst, and or even I contemplated having Deval, the dragon, the animo dragon in there, or the Devlin. Come to Deval, Devlin, I think it is. Leave it up to me to mess up names. I'm a professional at that. But yes. Okay, so, and I will say, lighting, it may be a little bit different because I still somewhat use daylight, and then I also use other lights that I have. I think it's after the sketch that I make changes so that the colors halfway look accurate, but I didn't get the new camera until later in the day, so I just kept with what I had because I didn't want to mess up the setup. So the next video, hopefully it will be with the newer camera, and I hope that it works really well, because there's just an issue with the iPad and the way light hits it and how the camera doesn't really focus that well. So this harp, or the lyre, should I say, it's a lyre, not a harp. It gave me quite a bit of issues at the angle. It's a very odd shape to me, but I think it's a pretty standard shape for a lot of lyres, like especially the base. And I actually halfway contemplated just drawing Venti with a harp instead of a lyre. Maybe I'll do that in the next Venti drawing video. Him kind of just holding onto the harp and crouched on it, I guess. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it. But I've seen many references of the big harps or their medium-sized one, and I think it could work out pretty good for him. Actually, whenever I researched it on Pinterest, he came up whenever I was searching in harp, because that was my first initial thing that I was thinking about doing. But then I ended up just putting his lyre in it. So if you're wishing on this banner, who are you wishing for? And also, who is your favorite Genshin character? Like I said before, mine initially starting out was Noelle. Noelle was my main gal in the game. And then once I started to get more characters, I don't use her as much, but I still level her up along with all the others. I think it'd be easier to say what characters I don't have at this point in time. So now we're moving on to the background. Now you'll see a couple different changes in the background. I go through some different moments and thinking that I wanted to do it one way, but then I changed it up and did it another way, because I was like, okay, I want them in the trees, but that didn't really work out. And then I was like, okay, we'll have a tree in the background and have the clouds behind him, and then I felt like that would be missing something. And then I found another image where Venti is standing and the sun is kind of setting and he's kind of in between the leaves of a tree. And I ended up somewhat going for that. But then at one point I thought I wanted to do like a little cool cloud setting, and that was not, it was not working for me. I think once I really started to notice it was whenever I tried to put the skin tone on the top of the background. It just didn't flow right. Yeah, so I had put the skin on it and I was like, this doesn't seem right. And then I was like, well, let me do the sky as a little landscape, and that felt like that was too plain. I felt like it needed more for it. And this is the background I end up settling on. I do render it a little bit more towards the end and add in a little bit more, multiply layers to it. And I really do like the clouds. And I just felt like an airy situation was perfect for Venti, because he's not really the inside kind. He even says whenever he's idle, he would want to be sitting. How does he say? He wants to be sitting in a tree overlooking a field, or basically in the big tree over at Windrise, and then just looking at the what's it called now? My brain's done blanked. Needless to say, I worked on this all day today, and now my brain is just like, it's kaput. But he just says he wants to have some cider and to just watch the views and the sight. He's very whimsical for sure. And if you have seen and heard the backstory of Venti, what are your thoughts on it? My heart kind of broke a little bit. I really did feel sorry for him, and then sorry for who he's actually modeled after. Maybe one day I'll feel more comfortable talking about more of the character lore, because if somebody by chance is just starting it, I really don't want to ruin it for them. So on the hair, I start out with a almost blue, but it's actually darker blue in person. And then somehow or another it ends up having purple to it. So, like I said, some of the colors end up changing with regards to my lighting and what I felt would work out good for the character. I need to do a hand study, like an official proper hand study, because this one, it just gave me issues. I think it's just because of the lyre, him holding it, and trying to picture him strumming the strings on there. But that was a different thing. I will say, overall, I feel like I'm finally getting the grasp of how best to render certain things and to bring it together. really trying not to do any pre-color selection or color picks or anything like that. I'm trying to just see the image and go for it. Which I think that helps too, because then it gets me in a more understanding of what exactly it's supposed to be. Now I will say I did start out with his cape being probably the more appropriate color, and then I do make changes to it. I end up making it darker, and then a little bit of color change here and there. And I have his vision. I actually made his vision a little bit bigger than what it is. Like I said, art is just one of those things you take a reference and you make it to how best that you feel like it could be or should be, and make your own art style. That's the fun part about art. You can do what you want with it. Heck, you could draw a stick figure and have a stick figure be your artwork. Anybody else struggle with the straight lines and redo and undo a whole bunch? I definitely do. I contemplated having the thumb on the side, but I just didn't end up adding it. I think it'd be, by the time I end up finishing the rendering and putting the light around everything, it just wouldn't have made a whole bunch of sense. Because actually his thumb probably be on the back side of it, so probably wouldn't be visible. If you do have Venti, what is your favorite team for Venti? Currently I don't have a favorite team for him. I'm still working on leveling him up. I'm trying to get a good weapon for him. I think I got the one that looks like a music note. You would think I would know a lot more of these names a lot better than what I do. So I just finished up the base colors of everything, and now we're working on the rendering. I do like the way that his eyes turned out for this piece. And I did incorporate the blue, but for some reason I feel like I made one eye a little bit more rounder versus the other one. But overall, it's pleasing. It's pleasing to the eye. Or at least that's how I feel. I tried to, like I said, just work on the angle of stuff, and it was a challenge to say the least, because I have him at a different angle. And of course I have him smiling big. Yeah, I think at one point I was looking at it, it's like, oh, it felt like he was more cross-eyed than what he actually have him as. And honestly, I will say, looking at the replay, the colors on here look a lot more vibrant and bright than what they do on the tablet. I think the part where it really goes to more of a purple color is whenever I end up doing a multiply on top, and it makes it a little bit darker. And then I end up doing an add layer and adding some highlights here and there. So I ended up on the background doing like a bokeh effect. I did little dots here and there, and then I did a chromatic aberration and a Gaussian blur to it. Oh, I did bloom as well, and then I turned down the opacity because I was going to have it really focused from his lyre, where whenever he's strumming it, it's got the strumming, I don't know, like sound waves coming from it. So I end up, after a bit, putting the little circles on there as well. I think I had issues too, because the way his cape is, it kind of flows out. And I probably could have cut it a little bit shorter, but it's all good. I didn't render the flower all the way. I kind of just rendered it to a point to where it's noticeable that it is a flower. And I try to make sure to put in the color formats. I'm not the biggest fan of this hat on him. I guess I could have made it a little bit more of a floppy hat. Probably would have helped. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out what else we could talk about on this. Because now we're just doing rendering, and I'm kind of just color picking from the background and putting it into the drawing itself. And the color picking, it does help whenever you have all your base colors on there already. But sometimes I do end up going to my little color wheel and selecting. I try to do as much as the coloring as I can without putting a multiply layer on top and add layer on top, but some of it I was just like, it had to have a little multiply layer here and there. I had to have an add layer. And honestly, I didn't realize it until towards the end that his collar was actually a little bit more pale, like the original color I had on his coat. If I would have outlined the backside of it with the black, that would have helped to show the difference between the background and his collar. Like I said, it's a very strange collar to say. I'm trying to think, who's up next for Genshin? As far as like birthdays. Oh, I think it's Yoimiya is next. And I've got her pose. I'm thinking of a pose I want to do. And I should be able to do a more full, in-depth draw with me with it. It'll be very interesting because it's going to have a big time difference in the lighting situation. So, alright. And then we're moving on to his little brooch. I guess, is that counted as a brooch? Little decorative piece. So I ended up taking the select tool and doing like a whole bunch of random shapes and then fill that in and then went over it with, I think it's an add layer. And then I used my smudge brush. Honestly, originally my idea of this, it was good, but then I noticed towards the end, you don't really notice it as much because I put most of the focus being on his face and also his heart. I notice a lot of the characters too, they have like little bow ties or even just a tie in general. They're very casually formal. Oh, and I had issues with my Apple Pencil dying all day today. So I think that's partly what took me even longer and everything. My pencil kept trying to die on me. Alright, so this is the little circle part that I was talking about. Trying to symbolize that he was doing his music. One thing I love about Procreate is that you can make a semicircle and then select the tool to make it a circle all the way, and it's fabulous. So honestly, I just went with how many I felt like doing. I didn't know what would be best, so I ended up using chromatic aberration, and then I go back doing the bloom, and I bloom it out pretty good. And then on top of that, I end up doing the Gaussian blur, just to kind of not make the shape so noticeable, I guess you could say. And then later on, do add some add layers on top of it to give it a little different viewpoint. I never realized how, even though Venti, his outfit, he does not have a whole bunch of things on his outfit. I noticed in the few beginning characters, their outfits are actually pretty simple, although it's the smallest details that makes it seem like it's a whole bunch. Like, I kind of omitted some of the detail on his cape, especially on the shoulder parts, because a lot of it's not going to be viewable because of, or at least the way I was thinking was the way the sun would hit it, and so I didn't really focus on that. But they do have a lot of just the small details that makes up the outfits and brings it all together. I actually cosplayed Venti once upon a time ago. was pretty fun. I need to practice too on ruffles on clothing. Although for this piece, I just kept it as simple as I could. It works alright, but I feel like I could have done better. Once again, it's just one of those things that it's just gonna require practice. And the more I practice it, the better off it'll be. But I am very happy with how his, what is it? It's like a corset? How that turned out, because it took me a minute to figure out the angle on how best to do for his body, because I was like, oh lord, didn't want to make it too skinny, I didn't want to make it too thick either, because Venti is one of the smaller character builds on the male characters, and then I kind of wanted some light to come in, and it was one of those things where I kind of halfway had an idea. I didn't really have the best of references. At first, I thought I was going to put the Mondstadt flowers, the Cecile flowers, in front of him and some in the back and have them like glowing. But I ended up not doing that because I really didn't want to cover up his outfit. Because Venti, he is one that is going to be front and center. It's going to be his day. And at one point I do end up moving the canvas around and thinking that I needed to either make Venti at an angle or make him smaller or something, but then I decided to just keep him the way he is. And I didn't realize this until at the end, that I ended up making that, let's say it would be the left side of his vision. I pushed it out more, and I think the reason why I ended up getting messed up with that was because whenever I did my outline, it kind of moved over a bit, so I think that's what really threw it off with some of that. I do like adding the little dots and doing the add and the chromatic aberration and bloom, because some of the visions do have that glistening glitter look to them. Like I said, I hope everybody's doing well and that your game and adventures are going good. And if you're drawing along with me, I hope your drawings are going good as well. Practice, practice, practice. That's the name of the game. Just keep on practicing. Like, I can see so many little things here and there. I'm like, oh, definitely should practice this, should practice that. Do something a little bit differently. But with each piece, we continue to learn. That's the main thing, is learning with each piece. And I did end up using also to the Game Fashion Archive on certain aspects of the drawing. More so with his hat. Yeah, fighting with the Apple Pencil again. I'm like, no, I don't need just a little bit more than 10%. I'm fine. So I can't remember at which point, but I end up duplicating everything. I'm doing a soft light layer over it, and then also adding an overlay because I really wanted to emphasize the colors. I'm trying to embrace the colors. I think this is the part where I try to figure out how I wanted to group everything. No, I was trying to figure out if I needed to resize them. And this is where I realized I messed up the coloring on the back of the cape, but you know, I just went with it. I just made a few changes here and there, and actually, I feel like it turned out pretty good with it. Because I wanted it to have it to where it had some shadow behind him, or in the cape itself. So the cape wouldn't be like the stark, bright color that it would be. So, but honestly, if I would have thought about the way the sun is either setting or rising, it probably could have affected the lighting situation of the cape itself. I don't know what color variations it probably would have done. And actually his cape may just be so thick that it wouldn't have penetrated through it. Alrighty. So finishing up on the cape, or at least trying to. Like I said, I ended up making some changes to the coloring of it. I always like the see how other people's interpretations of Venti is, and not really any of the characters, honestly. It's always nice to see that there are variations. As I mentioned before, you can follow somebody's video to a T or do exactly what they're doing, but honestly, you'll come out with your own version of that drawing as well. Just like they come out with their own version after looking at a reference. That's always the fun part, is continuing to learn, to grow in the art journey. Seeing the changes that have been made over time and changes in your art, and to see how best everything comes together. So I try to somewhat keep some of the color the same. I end up going over this back a little bit more, I think. And then I start working on this belt. This belt's actually pretty neat. I think it has got quite a variation of colors in it. And I do end up using an add layer and putting that over the top of it, just to help bring out that more gold look to it. Because as I mentioned before, I'm not the best with some of this color selection. Yeah, where are the places that yeah, here we go, having to add to it. I mean, it just adds the ad adds an extra part to it. And I was trying to think, okay, this part would have shading, and then I kind of forgot that I didn't do the undercolor, so I ended up taking the top layers off, if I'm not mistaken, and selecting like a gold color. Like I said, I do not render these flowers all the way. I just do them enough, and because then after a while I end up using the add layer and a multiply layer on top of it, so it kind of it doesn't really blend in. It just doesn't stand out as much as the lighting does from the music and everything like that. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, this is where I end up adding, because I was looking at it, I'm like, oh lord, I forgot to add that whenever I did my base colors. It wasn't something that really stood out to me whenever I was going through the coloring process of it. I'm very excited to be able to use my new camera, because I know it's going to have a much better, like, being able to see these color variations. So I ended up duplicating everything and putting a layer on top of it and doing a soft light layer. And I just went through the gradient maps because I wanted to pick something that would help to really bring the colors to life. And I think I ended up deciding on, it's like a red one.